Oh, hello, and welcome to this week's Jessica Recommends. And I'm wondering if you can guess the theme of the books this week that I will be, recommending. Just if you can notice anything about my shelves or anything, I don't know. Let me get a drink though. I'm gonna just, oh, sorry. No, that's Chernobog. Like, no, that's Merida. Hmm. Oh, here's my drink. Yes, that's right. I'm a Disney adult. Um, Although I take offense at the term because I think it seems weird and like there's something wrong with me and I don't know, I don't call it that. But I was a Disney child. I was raised on Disney stuff. We only got cable. We only got cable because we could get the Disney Channel. My mom would only agree to cable so that we could have the Disney Channel because my mom loves everything Disney. All our vacations are Disney. My parents have been to Walt Disney World so many times for their anniversary that my dad swears that everyone there knows them by their first names and wishes them a happy anniversary as soon as they see them walk in the door. So it just was how I was raised. I was raised on adorable Disney films. I was raised on Figment. There's actually going to be a whole thing about Figment coming up later in a different video. But yeah, that's just how I was brought up. I mean, this is what my family now, my husband and my kids, this is what we think of as a good book to read on a trip. We found this on a Disney cruise. It weighs roughly 1,000 pounds and is the real and complete story of Mickey Mouse. And everyone in the family is taking turns reading it. The ultimate history of Mickey Mouse. That's what we're like as a family now. And that's just how I was raised. So, yes, I'm one of those people. So, but first, of course, what am I reading right this minute? Right this minute, I am reading Holly Black's The Prisoner's Throne. Absolutely loving it. I'm kind of hopscotching back and forth between the actual physical book, which is gorgeous, and this is the Barnes & Noble special edition, and I love it. But listening to the audiobook is okay, I'll be honest. It's not like, wow, it's really enhancing the book. So if you would rather get the physical book, I would recommend that. So that's what I'm reading right now. And yes, when speaking of I was a Disney kid, I have my complete set of these bad boys still. This was the kind of thing, these early reader books that you subscribe to basically like $1 a month or something like that. And I had all the Dr. Seuss books and I had all of these. And I still have them. Disney's Wonderful World of Reading, they're called. I have like basically every Disney movie to date and like until well to the date of me being like 8 or something like that. So like all the classic old Disney movies and all the other little stories about Mickey Mouse and stuff, and I still have them and they're still great and they're still fun for kids to read. So if you can get your hands on any of these bad boys, I highly recommend them. Although they probably no longer come with a little carrying case, which mine did, but the carrying case has left us now, alas. So here's the thing about Disney books. If you are into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. But this post is in case there might be something, if you're not a Disney person, where you want to branch out. Because right now, Disney is actually doing some really excellent things. I mean, they own Hyperion, which is a major publisher. They publish Rick Riordan and Rick Riordan Presents and like tons and tons of books. Yes, they're a huge publisher now, but then just the Disney specific books, they're doing some really interesting things that I am really loving. And so that is what we're going to talk about today. But of course, let's see. Let's have a little change. That's better. So they're doing a lot of recreating classic Disney things, of course. And I really love that. A lot of like retro fun happening. This is my little tiki room hat. My favorite experience at Disney. I like to get a Dole Whip and go and sit in the tiki room and have the birds sing to me. And this was done for like the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. It has a big 50 on the back of the ears and stuff like that. And a few years ago, I discovered this, which I was so excited about. So Disney did a little partnership with Marvel a few years ago, and they did several comic books of like classic Disney experiences. This one is super wackadoo, and I kind of love it for that. It's by Adams, Dominguez, and Sotocolor, and it is the story of the Enchanted Tiki Room, and it's real bonkers and super fun though, really fun art. And if you're a fan of the Enchanted Tiki Room, or you've even just been in there once, you should check this out because it is fun. I started putting out a series of things like this. This is the story of Peter Pan as retold by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson, who, if you know, wrote Peter and the Starcatchers. If you don't know, they wrote Peter and the Starcatchers based on Peter Pan. And this is the classic Mary Blair art. If you don't know who Mary Blair was, she was basically an illustrator and animator for Disney for many years, who sort of came up with the iconic look of so many of the things. Alice in Wonderland is like all her. A lot of the rides at Disneyland and just the way that a lot of Disney stuff that we see today, the way a lot of it looks is Mary Blair. And so her basically storyboards for these classic Disney films, they have remade into these gorgeous picture books, which all came out with a bang, sort of on an anniversary or something like that, and then are kind of getting hard to find. But I definitely recommend them if you can find them. They've had like an award-winning author like Cynthia Rylant retell the story in her own words, Dave Barry, Ridley Pearson, and then they have paired it up with Mary Blair's storyboard art for the animation. You will never find anything more gorgeous. If you are a fan of any of these classic Disney films, you need to check these out. This one, of course, Cynthia Rylant again, but was actually after Mary Blair's time, of course. So they have the art by Meg Park. Stunning, really, really great. And it was kind of different. They've done like a different twist on some of them, because it's like someone telling you the story. It's not word for word with the movie or something like that. It's someone telling you the story. This, of course, is my favorite. Huge fan of Alice in Wonderland, the original book. Huge fan of the Disney movie, retold by John Sheska with the art by Mary Blair. This is like where she really is she just shines. This is so gorgeous, so fun. I'm a huge fan of it. But I am also, and this surprises many people because I know it's fun to hate on it, but I'll be honest, It's a Small World is possibly my favorite ride of all time. I love It's a Small World. I think it is so fun and cheerful and adorable. And I especially love the one at Disneyland. If you don't know, they revamped the Disneyland version a few years ago so that it includes the Disney characters in the areas where they would be, in the countries they would be in. So you see Alice in the part that is England, and you see Woody and Jessie in the part that is America, and you see Lilo and Stitch and the Little Mermaid in the Oceania part, talking about Hawaii and the Polynesian Islands and stuff like that. It's really fun. So I love the classic art, the stylized art for this. It also comes with a CD of the music if you love the song so much. But I'm a huge fan of Small World, and I will hear nothing bad against it. I am sorry, it's perfect. And Haunted Mansion, of course, is everyone else's favorite. And I do love it. I love most things about Disneyland, and I love all the fun Haunted Mansion things that are happening now. The new movie, if you haven't seen it, that was on Disney Plus, was just so great. I love that with Lakeith Stanfield and just really cool. But they did this cool book a couple of years ago, and yes, it has the CD is attached and is like the entire walkthrough. It's the narration and the music and stuff like that. So it's sort of like you're in the ride, and it's so fun. So if you're like looking for some sort of classic looking Disney books to share the child or just collect for yourself, that's what I would recommend. But our thing is just that at some point, every one of my kids has become obsessed with a certain aspect of something Disney, Disney movies. With my oldest, it was the Pixar films, and it was just each Pixar film that would come out, he would just go so hard for. And then my daughter, of course, it was all princess all the time. And um then with my youngest son, he is really into just sort of the classic experiences, the classic stuff. He loves the tiki room. He loves the haunted mansion. But he loves Donald Duck and he loves Mickey and he loves the new shorts that they're putting out. So let's look into that. So, like I said, my oldest was super into Pixar and always has been. And actually, he went to Disneyland a little while ago, like on a school trip, and he brought me back this for a prize. But but his favorite, though, was Wall-E. When Pixar did Wall-E, it just something about those robots, those bots just really hit with my oldest. He was just at the perfect age for it. He was 4, and it was everything to him. He was obsessed. And so this picture book that they did at the time, Lots of Bots, is a rhyming picture book about the different bots that Wall-E meets. It is so darling. And I at one point had it actually memorized because I read it to him so many times. And even after he could read and he would read it to himself, he wanted me to read it to him because he loved to just sit and look at the pictures and not have to worry about working through the words and stuff. It's a really great picture book. If you've got kids that love Wall-E or anything robot, it's just super fun. But we love all the classic, like the reprints of the little golden books that they're doing now, which I love to pieces. Mickey Mouse and his spaceship, stuff that they did in like the 60s and stuff like that. Mickey's Walt Disney World Adventure, which came out when Walt Disney World opened. They have had a long-standing partnership with Little Golden Books, and I love it. In fact, they've had such a long-standing partnership with Little Golden Books, Disney has. Please enjoy this, The Black Hole. This was mine as a child. It cost 69 cents. 69, dude. And yes, I have had this and read it so many times. My whole family, we loved The Black Hole. We loved Tron. My husband loves The Black Hole. He loved Tron. My kids love it now. And so I have kept this carefully preserved. And I even have a backup copy so people can look at this one. But I stole one of my brother's copies of The Black Hole. And so we're keeping that one pristine. And this one's to read. But they are doing like all the classic rides in updated ones. And this is a reprint of the original Sword in the Stone, which, as you can tell, is very dear to my heart. Haunted Mansion, and reprints of things like this, like the Christmas ones that they did. Santa Stops at Disneyland. This is so cute. It's so great for a little kid that loves Santa books. And and then this though, this thing wilded us out because my husband and I both vaguely remembered it. And then when they reprinted it a couple of years ago, we got a copy. And apparently there was lore that there was a tree in Disneyland when they built Disneyland. And the tree is still there and you can find it. There's a tree that they did not cut down that they built the park around. And there is a little leprechaun who lives in that tree. And at some point in the beginning, there used to be a little door, like a fairy door attached to that tree. And the tree is still there in Disneyland and you can go find it. But I think the little door is gone. But if you ask a cast member, they're supposed to know where it is. And I vaguely remembered that from when I was a kid, but not really. And it's super funny to me. But anyway, here is the book about the little man of Disneyland who lives in the tree in Disneyland and Donald Duck and them promising that they will never cut down his tree. It's a little bit creepy, to be honest, and super cool and interesting to me. This one cost 49 cents. I think this was probably my sister's and is from like the 60s or something like that. But Orange Bird, any of the sort of the Disney specific characters and stuff, this is a compilation of Mickey Christmas little golden books that they reprinted just last year. They have done all the short films that Pixar has ever done are available as a little golden book. All the actual movies, all the Marvel movies, like we have like the Avengers and stuff like that. So if you've got little kids, that are obsessed with these movies and you don't want them just watching the movie over and over again, a really fun option is to get them a cheap little golden book for being so cheap. And there's a whole thing about little golden books, how they were supposed to be inexpensive so kids could afford books. But for being so cheap, they hold up really well. They last a long time. They're well bound. So it's kind of a nice option to be able to spend. Now they're like $3, but to just spend like $3 and get your kid a copy of their favorite movie in book form so they can read it. All the Pixar movies, all the Disney animated movies, and we have like the character studies like the Mighty Thor and Mischievous Loki and stuff like that. So that also when my youngest was kind of too little for some of those things, but the older kids were talking about Thanos and they're talking about the Marvel movies and stuff. And my youngest hadn't been able to see it yet because we didn't want to take him into the theater for something like that. But we were able to show him the picture books and show him the little golden books. And he was able to kind of follow along the story and learn the story and learn who the characters were. And he really loved that. And it was a really nice option for us. So, but like I said, my daughter, so that was the boys. The boys are into the classic characters and the new Pixar movies and stuff like that. And we're all into Marvel and things like that. And Star Wars. I'd already done Star Wars. We have 9 million Star Wars little golden books as well. But my daughter was into the princesses. And now she won't admit it because she's 15 and she's getting a little too cool for it, but she's still kind of into the princesses. But of course, as soon as Brave came out, it instantly became our entire family's favorite thing in the whole world. There is Mama Bear back there. She's holding one of the cubs. We have all the cubs. We have Queen Eleanor with her little crown perched on her little black bear head. Merida, there are so many dolls and stuffed bears and things in this house. The whole family was obsessed. And so I was very pleased and excited to find this. Maggie Stiefvater, one of my favorite writers that's working now in the YA sphere, and a delightful human being as well. And Maggie Stiefvater wrote this Bravely, a sequel to Brave. It is so cool and so different. It's a really unusual book. It's very much based on sort of like old Scottish lore. She goes deeper into like the magic and just really explores a lot of interesting themes. Really cool. My daughter absolutely loved it. I read it, absolutely loved it. It is so fun to see the modern stuff that they're doing for the teens and tweens. Loved Bravely so much. And I just got the Twisted Tale, and I'll talk about those in a second. Just got the latest Twisted Tale, and it is Merida. I am so excited. But I love The Descendants. I know I'm not the like target audience probably for these things. And I like the movies. I think the songs are kind of fun, but I love the books. Melissa de la Cruz is writing the books. Isle of the Lost is the first one, and they sort of go around the movies. So this one takes place right before the first Descendants movie. There's one that comes in between 1 and 2, and et cetera, et cetera. This is a really fun introduction to the characters. And I love the villains. I am not wearing my villain's baseball cap because I don't know. I didn't want to mash my hair. Anyway, I have of course, a purple baseball cap with all the Disney villains on. I love the villains. I think they're often more interesting than the princesses. And so I love the idea of like what happens to the villains' kids. What do the villains' kids do? Where do they go? And it's a really fascinating concept. And I love how they've done all the things that go with it. They've done books, there's movies, there's like comics, there's like all kinds of tie-in stuff to go with it. And it's really interesting. And speaking of an interesting sequel to something, Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shea Ernshaw. This was surprisingly good. I didn't think I'd be interested. I do really like Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm not as obsessive as a lot of people seem to be. I don't go as hard for it as some people do. Like when it first came out, I feel like I'm like a purist. Like I was there opening weekend, and because I love Danny Elfman's music and I love the music so much, but as my husband always points out, the love story is kind of crap. Like girl, you can do better. You know, they didn't really seem to have a relationship. So this is a very interesting look at what that would actually be like to suddenly marry Jack Skellington, and everybody loves Jack Skellington like in a worshipful way. And Sally really wants to know his heart, but also She wants to know herself. Who is she beyond being a weird little rag doll that was sewn up by a mad scientist? And this is really interesting. It does not in any way, shape, or form verge into creepy territory, which is what I was concerned about. I got it for my daughter. I was going to read it first. I didn't. And then later I was like, how was that? And she's like, oh, it was fine. So like it really is Sally's story. It does not get icky. You know what I mean, at all, because she's a ragdoll and he's a skeleton. It's just weird. But it's a really interesting look at the other doors and other worlds around Halloween Town. And I loved it. But now, as I said, villains. So I will put a villain hat on. So I just discovered, by the way, coming into my office with this, the eyes and nostrils glow. I fully wore this for a week last week and did not know that. I just purchased this. We were just in Disneyland, and that's what inspired me to want to do this video this week. So we were just at Disneyland, obviously had to pick up this and wore it around all week. And at no point did my kids ever point out to me, like when we were in a ride or something, that the eyes glow. How cool is that? Villains. I do love the villain stories, and I do love the Twisted Tales. The Twisted Tales series are very unusual. We have pretty much all of them, except the one I just listened to the audiobook of, which was the Beauty and the Beast story. And that was super fascinating and kind of went hard into the whole exploration of like, who was the enchantress who enchanted the beast? Why didn't anyone know he was there in the woods? But also the idea that there was a mental asylum nearby and that they were going to get Belle and or Maurice committed to it, and sort of went into that aspect of the story. And people were like, what? Where did they get that from? And I'm like, no, it's there in the cartoon, and it's kind of weird if you think about it. So the Twisted Tales are basically like the what if. What if this is the first one, a whole new world? What if Aladdin had never found the lamp? So a really interesting look at how that story would have played out if Jafar had actually gotten the lamp immediately, if it hadn't been Aladdin who got the lamp. Like, what part would Aladdin play in the story? What part would Jasmine play in the story at this point? It was really good. It's a really fun introduction to this. You don't have to read them in order, but I'm weird, so I'm reading them in order. Um, but my daughter has them all, and she's really enjoyed them. They've, Tiana, the most recent one to come out is called Fate Be Changed, and it is about Merida, and I'm super excited. And it's sort of like, what if the cake did not turn Merida or Merida's mom into a bear? Like, what if it had done something else? And I won't spoil what it says it does, but like, what if that story had played out completely differently? And I really am in love with that idea. I think it's such an interesting question, because that's what I love to do with my own writing, is kind of like, what would happen if this, what would happen if you weren't Cinderella, but you tried to help Cinderella? Or, what if her fairy godmother was evil, is one of my books. Or so I love the concept of the Twisted Tales. And of course, I know what you're wondering is, when I say I love the villains and I love the like, what would happen if this and that, and what's the backstory of those characters, the backstory of villains and stuff like that. So obviously you're wondering, who is my favorite villain? And if you have not figured that out by now, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know like how else to signal it to you. If you know anything about me and you're like, hey, isn't there a Disney villain that can transform into a dragon? Yeah, there is. And so I absolutely loved Once Upon a Dream, which was the twisted tale about Sleeping Beauty. And what if she did not wake up? What if the prince did not get to her? She did not wake up. What does that look like? What is happening in her dream? What is happening in the castle? What is happening while everyone's asleep? A concept that has fascinated me forever. The whole Sleeping Beauty story, the original version, she does just sleep for 100 years. The prince doesn't actually wake her up with a kiss. And so, this sort of is dealing with that. It's not 100 years, but it is a long amount of time, longer than 15 minutes anyway, that she is asleep. And it's a really cool, but I love all the stuff that they're doing with Beauty and the Beast, or Sleeping Beauty. And I'm almost honestly kind of jealous that, like, you kind of want to feel like, on the one hand, you want the stuff, like I want these books to exist so that I can read them and enjoy them. On the other hand, I'm like, kind of like, why didn't I get to do that? Why isn't why didn't Disney come to me and let me be the only one who writes Maleficent stories and stuff like that? But I can't complain because they really are good. If you don't know, the Kingdom Keepers series is super fun. Disney After Dark is the first one. It involves both Maleficent and It's a Small World, sort of like a supernatural mystery involving a middle grade level, involving a group of kids. Trapped in Disney World After Dark, and it's by Ridley Pearson, who again wrote Peter and the Starcatchers. That is super fun. And of course, I loved the Maleficent movies. I thought they were great. I just loved them with all my heart and soul, especially the first one. But I have to say, these books that they did, which are fancy, and the one has like black edging and stuff like that, and they've got that velvety feel on the outside. The books were phenomenal. The books are phenomenal. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil is the first one. I love the style of it. Elizabeth Rudnick did the book, is really interesting to me because, again, backstory, it actually adds a backstory about Maleficent's parents, who were her parents, and all this stuff and what happened to them, and why was she sort of alone in her little fairy kingdom after a while. And it is so good. They're both by Elizabeth Rudnick. They follow both of the movies, but not that closely. It's close enough that you're like, yes, this is like the movie, but adds enough extra stuff that it's really fun and interesting to read. And yeah, if you just were like, I wonder what her favorite classic Disney movie was growing up, like, there's really should not be a question in your mind. This is my actual notebook that I actually write in. Obviously, one more thing that I am super into, so let's talk about that. I know I said we'd be talking more about Figment later in another video. Maybe I'll do that next week. But we're going to talk a little bit about Figment now because honestly, there is not enough time in the world for me to adequately express Figment and my devotion to Figment. I mean, there's not enough time in the world for me to talk about Figment, let's be honest. So I have been into Figment since I was 4 years old. If you don't know who Figment is, Figment was a character created specifically for Walt Disney World, or for Epcot. So he is the spark of imagination. He's a figment of imagination. He has a song, he has a ride. They've changed the ride. They need to change the ride again. I would like to see them go back to the original. That's a story for another time. But I love Figment, all things Figment. And so I was so delighted. This just came out. They just did a little golden book all about Figment and showing him off. So he is the mascot of Epcot in Florida. And so they show him like kind of going around Epcot. Here's Dreamfinder and their ship, their airship that runs on dreams and imagination and things like that. And this follows along sort of the original story of the original ride, which is just perfection in itself. And this just came out, is super fun if you are a Figment fan, but they did a 2-part Marvel comics with Figment and Dreamfinder, and it's their origin story. Speaking of steampunk, super steampunky, like he's like like a gentleman philosopher, gives big H.G. Wells vibes basically here, and he summons Figment from the dream realm kind of thing. It's a really, really fun story, really good art. It was written by Jim Zub, arts by Andrade and Beaulieu. And I reached out actually to Jim Zub after I read this online and found out he's a delightful person and was just like, tell me everything. Like, and he turns out to be, of course, the biggest Figment fan as well. And so that's why he wanted to do this. So I love this so much. But that's what I'm recommending this week. So everyone go out and, get your Disney on. Even if you're not like a tried and true Disney adult like me, that's okay. We still love you.